So I'm going to try to do a recap in the next 2 minutes because we have an hour to cover. The Battle of Ahzab is going on in Medina. We have 13 years of Makkah and 10 years of Medina in the life of the Rasulullah. In the 5th year of the Medina era, Battle of Ahzab is going on. So Battle of Badr is over, Battle of Uhud is over, and then the slander of Aisha has happened. The Munafiq are trying to do whatever they can to ruin the religion of Islam. The Jews in Medina are trying to ruin Islam. And the Aws and Khazraj, the mushriks of Medina, have become Muslims, alhamdulillah, and they are called the Ansar in Medina. And we are now in Battle of Ahzab. The Battle of Ahzab is a confederation. It's a group forming together against Islam. You have multiple forces coming from different parts of Arabia in the Battle of Ahzab. That's how it's different from Battle of Badr, Battle of Uhud, where it is just Makkah versus Medina. This is not Makkah versus Medina. This is Makkah. Abu Sufyan is leading the charge in Makkah. There's Ghatafan, and of course you'll have to watch the last week's video to understand who's Ghatafan. Basically they're Bedouins, tribe of Bedouins who've come together. Pay me money and I'll fight. They're those kinds of people, sellouts. So you have Abu Sufyan coming from the south, Makkah. You have Ghatafan coming from the north. So you have Makkah, Medina, and you have the Roman Empire, Palestine. So you have Makkah, Abu Sufyan's forces. Ghatafan is coming from the north. And you have these different ajlaf, which is basically crude Bedouins, horrible behavior, bad Bedouins. They're joining forces with Abu Sufyan. And in the Medina side, you have Banu Qurayzah, which is a Jewish tribe. You have Banu Nadir, which was expelled from Medina, and they had gone to Khaybar. So in Khaybar, you have Banu Nadir, Jewish tribe, Yahud. You have Banu Qurayzah in Medina. That's the last Jewish tribe remaining in Medina. So this is a Battle of Ahzab where Abu Sufyan has gathered the largest force ever known in Arabia, who would never come together as a group for 2 or 3 tribes. They would never come together. They'd just fight with each other the entire time in Jahiliyyah. Now they're forming an alliance against the Rasulullah in Medina. The Muslims are about 2,500 to 2,700 right now in Medina, and they have been digging the Khandaq, digging the trench, and all of those stories we have covered in the last week. Now we're going to come to guarding the trench. So the forces are arriving from Makkah. It would take about 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks for the forces to arrive, 10,000 forces. So you have 4,000 Quraysh coming from Makkah, from the south. The north is going to meet them at a spot. And I had explained this last week. Medina is covered by Harra Gharbiyya and Harra Sharqiyya. How many of you have been to Medina? Have been to Medina? Okay, mashallah. MashaAllah. And so you know, Medina is naturally covered, is naturally protected. There's Harra Gharbiyya and Harra Sharqiyya. So think of this table as Medina, okay? So you have Harra Gharbiyya and Harra Sharqiyya here. And you have dense, thick date palms. How are you going to bring 10,000 camels and horses through date palms? You can't. And you cannot bring them through the volcanic rocks, which is the Harra Gharbiyya, Sharqiyya. And then you have the Uhud mountains. You cannot bring an army through Uhud mountains. You can have 10 or 20 people, but you cannot have 10,000 people coming. So you can spot them, right? So Medina is protected like this already. Medina, the Masjid of Medina, which was the entire city of Medina at that time, is here, protected by Uhud, Harra Gharbiyya, Harra Sharqiyya, and the Banu Qurayzah was living right outside of Medina in a place called Awari. You would know this. And that's where Banu Qurayzah is living. So now you can picture Medina in your map. Medina, the Sahaba, Harra Gharbiyya, Harra Sharqiyya, you have the dense date palms, you have the mountains of Uhud. So you really only have this stretch that they can come with to enter into the city. And in this stretch, they are told that, Ya Rasulullah, by Salman al-Farisi, radiallahu anhu, Sahabi, that in our Faris, in our Persia, when we're fighting the Romans, we dig a trench. Because then the horses and the camels, they're going to stop. They're not going to come down into the trench. And so trench is something that the Arabs never knew. They didn't know what is a trench. They had no idea about this kind of battle. So this is advanced technology, okay? And so Abu Sufyan is thinking he has the greatest force of all time. So we have different forces coming in. Realize Abu Sufyan, Ghatafan, Banu Nadir from Khaybar, and the leader was Huyay ibn Akhtab, and Banu Qurayzah, which is in Medina, who has given a promise to the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that we are on your side, O Muslims. We have nothing against you. Yes, the Banu Nadir, the other Jewish tribe, they try to assassinate you, and so you kick them out. That's okay, but we are not like them. We are with you. Of course we are happy with you, because we get our own Sharia. We are following our own religion. We don't accept you as the Rasulullah. We are happy. So they've given a qasam, they've given a halaf on Allah. Okay, so while these forces are arriving and we are digging a trench, those stories have been done last week. Now the forces have just arrived and it is cold, and it is Medina cold. You know what the Medina cold is like. No buildings, no parkas, no Canada Goose, no nothing. It's just Medina cold, the sandstorms, and no food supply. We've talked about all of this, but now we're getting into the guarding of the trench. I want you to get into the mood, understand where we are standing right now. The trench has been dug with no machinery, no excavators. It was just by hand. And the Sahaba had nothing to carry the boulders and the rocks with, and so they were left with no choice but to use their remaining shirt, to use as a bag, as a sack, to carry that. Imagine if I asked you to stand in this temperature outside without your shirt and then do some work, and I told you somebody's coming to kill you. And you have no food, of course, no food. You don't get a buffet after you're doing this hard work. None of that, right? And all they have is Iman, and they have the miracles of Rasulullah. We did a couple of stories last week. Now the trench is done. The Sahaba have not had a chance to sleep. Now imagine everything I just told you. Imagine you didn't have any chance to sleep. 3 weeks, right? 3 weeks journey, you have 24 hours times, say 7 days times 3. That's all the time you have to dig. So you can sleep, you can do Salah. The Sahaba were so busy, and we are going to come to this, when they finally arrive, the Sahaba did not get the chance to pray Asr. This is the first time, and the only time that the Rasulullah himself missed Asr prayer. There's only one other time in the lifetime of Rasulullah that he missed Fajr. He missed Fajr and Asr once, Fajr and once Asr. And the other one, Fajr, is going to be next year when Khaybar is going to be fought against. And he was coming back from the expedition, and everybody was so tired. And they are arriving just before, 1 hour before Fajr. What time is Fajr? 6:30? Well, we are in Edmonton, but usually in Medina, 4:30, 5:30. Well, an hour before, you're arriving at 3:30. And so everybody's tired. So the Prophet ﷺ said, this isn't Khaybar, which is going to be next year. I'm just telling you the incident. He says, who's going to take the responsibility, the guarantee, if you're going to wake up if you go to sleep? And so Bilal says, Ya Rasulullah, I'll wake you up. I'll wake everybody up. Okay, great. So everybody goes to sleep. It is now Fajr. Nobody wakes up. You can imagine, 1 hour. And so 2 hours, 3 hours, and the sun has come up. Fajr is over. The Fajr is expired. This is not because somebody is busy watching a football match or a cricket match. It's just because they were tired after the expedition. So the first person to wake up, according to one riwayah, is Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, but then the more authentic one that I lean towards is that Rasulullah himself woke up. He was the first one to wake up. And so when the Prophet woke up, it was because of the sunlight. And so he then wakes up the rest of the people. In the other riwayah, it says Abu Bakr as-Siddiq woke up and then he went to the Rasulullah. He says, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. He did not touch the Rasulullah. He would not dare to do this in the middle of the sleep. So he's just standing there saying, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And he woke him up. Regardless of which riwayah you go with, the point is, they miss Fajr. And the Prophet wakes up, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they all then pray. They all about to pray. They wake up. Everybody's doing wudu. And they get to Bilal and he's still sleeping. And so finally they wake up Bilal radiallahu anhu and everything. Everybody does wudu and everything. After the Salah is over, the Prophet comes to Bilal and says, Ya Bilal, what happened? You said you're going to wake us up. So Bilal radiallahu anhu has the best excuse in the world. He says, Ya Rasulullah, the one who took your soul took my soul. Don't blame me. This is Allah. Allah is the one who put me to sleep. That is the one time you're allowed to not pray, right? So Ya Rasulullah, don't look at me. The one who took your soul took my soul. Anyway, so this is in the incident of Khaybar. This is going to be next year. Coming back to Ahzab. Ahzab, when they were guarding the trench, I mean, when are you going to get the time to sleep? And they have no more food, because last week we covered about the fact that they had no food. That Bilal said they were just suckling on the pit of a date by now. They had nothing remaining. Because understand, the trench is dug. Forces are arriving. Banu Qurayzah, we don't know what side they're on. Where are you going to get the food from? And so supplies are dwindling. It's already 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks they've been digging the trench. Finally, Abu Sufyan's forces arrive. Let's go to the side of the enemies. Abu Sufyan, now again, I'm saying enemies because we're talking about Khandaq, Ahzab, Astaghfirullah, they are not enemies in 2022 because they all become Muslim in the end, inshallah, right? So we have Abu Sufyan who's leading the charge. Abu Sufyan is put in charge as the leader of not just the Quraysh army, Ghatafan, Banu Nadir, and eventually Banu Qurayzah is the one who's going to be on their side. The leader of this entire Ahzab confederation, think of it as a modern equivalent of NATO. You have Germany and and the US and everybody coming together. Okay, so you have Abu Sufyan coming in. His main right-hand commander is Khalid bin al-Walid. I'm not saying radiallahu anh right now because he's not on the right side at the moment, but he will eventually become Muslim and he will do the Fatah of Rome. Roman Empire is going to be defeated at the hands of Khalid bin Walid, thanks to his efforts and with the help of Allah, of course. And on the other hand, we have Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl, Abu Jahl's son. Now remember, Abu Jahl has died in Badr. And then we had Uhud, where Muslims suffered a lot of casualties. And then you have Ahzab, which is what we have right now. So Ikrimah is the default president with the death of Abu Jahl. He is the son of the president. By the way, Abu Jahl was not the president there. He was the vice president. The president was Khalid ibn Walid's dad, Walid ibn Mughira. And Walid ibn Mughira was the Bill Gates, and he died as a mushrik. And Allah has talked about Walid ibn Mughira because he was the head poet. He was the best poet. In any case, I can't get into those details because we got to stick to Ahzab. But anyway, so Khalid ibn Walid is the son of Walid ibn Mughira, the Bill Gates of the mushriks. And Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl is the son of the vice president, Abu Jahl. So they're leading the charge. Cavalry, infantry, 4,000. Then you have Ghatafan. As soon as they arrive, they camp separately. So Ghatafan is here. Remember, this is Medina Masjid, Medina city. Ghatafan coming from north. Abu Sufyan has come from here and they part. So think of this as Abu Sufyan. Think of this as Ghatafan, their forces. So the camels, their horses, they all come to the trench and they all stop. And they're like, what is this? Can't go in there. And so they force the camels to walk past. And you know, camels are like, I'm not going to do what you want me to do. I operate with my own command. They're kind of like American cars. And the horses, which are more Japanese cars, you know, they're at least more reliable. But they said, we can't do this. We need our food. We need our supplies. But the Sahaba, they had already harvested the crops before they could arrive. So all the crops are on the Medina side. Whatever, of course, strategic decision. Rasulullah was leading on this side. And so trenches dug, Sahaba are gathered. They are all looking face to face at each other. Ghatafan is waving at Abu Sufyan's forces. They're all on that side thinking, all right, we are both here. Who's going to now take care? Who's going to fight for him? There's no, remember, this is the entire Muslim Ummah, 2,500 in Medina. There's nobody coming from Khurasan, Afghanistan to rescue. This is it. And so Ghatafan is so confident and Abu Sufyan is so confident and they're all good. During this time, when they're guarding the trench, the forces which are now surprised by this rearrange themselves and think, what are we supposed to do now? Because we have to come up with a strategy. How do we get past this trench? So some of them tried to come in, but then the Sahaba got in position and everybody had their position. So Ali radiallahu anh had one position, and I'm sure if you've gone to Medina, you've seen that. That's the position where Ali radiallahu anh is going to be with his cavalry. Here's the position of Umar radiallahu anh. You have the Sahaba who start firing missiles, which is bows and arrows at the time. And so past the trench, the horses are refusing. Even the ones that are the most loyal, they refuse. We can't go in there. We're getting bows and arrows. And so yes, people are getting injured, and they decide we have to re-strategize. And so Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl on that side, and Khalid ibn Walid, who was the best military commander, unfortunately on the wrong side, but he is the best military commander, is coming up with his ideas now what to do. And though they realize the trench is dug, we can't come from here. No way. We have to find ways through those caveats. Remember, this, we can't go as 10,000, forget it. Look at him understanding this. No GPS, no nothing, but he understands this that quickly. And so he's going to gather a force big enough to be able to penetrate into Medina from another side. While they're doing this, remember, all of this is being organized by Banu Nadir. Banu Nadir in Khaybar is the one who had gone to Abu Sufyan, if you remember, who had done this partnership and said, all right, I'll give half the money to Ghatafan of Khaybar, half the money of 1 year to Khaybar to participate in the battle. That's why Ghatafan came over. They had nothing against Islam, they just wanted the money. But Abu Sufyan came over because his business was being affected against the Roman Empire. And so Banu Nadir, this man, Huyay ibn Akhtab, the man who hated the Rasulullah, the Jew, he now knows that the army has arrived. His job is to take Banu Qurayzah on the side of Banu Nadir, on the side of Abu Sufyan. And so, remember, we have Khandaq, we have the volcanic ashes, the volcanic rocks, we have the date palms, we have Uhud. The mushriks are trying to penetrate through offense. That's where they're skilled. The mushriks can fight. They're swordsmen, they have spotters, they have snipers, bows and arrows, they have everything. Whereas the Jews can't fight. All they can do is defend themselves. They have fortresses. Remember we talked about this last week? They can only defend themselves. So you cannot enter into a Jewish camp with all your bows and arrows. There's nothing you can do because they've locked up the fortress doors, huge doors. There's nothing you can do. You can't even climb up. And so Banu Nadir, Huyay ibn Akhtab, his job was to convince Banu Qurayzah, what do you have to lose? Just come on our side. Let them die. And so, before I get to what they do, I just want to give you a small tidbit of how tired the Sahaba are by now already. The war has not begun now. The effort began a while ago. These guys have arrived now. And one of the Ashra Mubashira Sahabi, Ashra Mubashira are the 10 Mubashir Sahabi, that is, who have been promised Jannah in one hadith. They have promised Jannah. Abu Bakr fil Jannah, Umar fil Jannah, Ali fil Jannah, Uthman fil Jannah, Saad ibn Abi Waqqas fil Jannah, Talha fil Jannah, Zubayr fil Jannah. So Saad ibn Abi Waqqas, his incident is what I want to tell you. While they're guarding the trench, while Banu Nadir is going and talking to Banu Qurayzah, we'll get to that. From the Sahaba side, Saad ibn Abi Waqqas realized that the Sahaba are working in shifts and they're guarding. And the job that the Rasulullah had put was keep shouting Allahu Akbar loudly. So everybody knows on the other side we are awake. We're not sleeping, we're guarding. And so the Sahaba are doing their shifts and they're going Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, the entire night, the entire time. And of course, even the Prophet Muhammad is assigned on one spot. And then on his side, he's doing Allahu Akbar, takbir. Saad ibn Abi Waqqas, the Ashra Mubashira Sahabi, he comes to the Rasulullah after his shift is over, the little time that he has available to sleep. Maybe 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, I don't know. And he comes, and it is dark. So the Rasulullah says, who is it? He says, Labbaik ya Rasulullah. Labbaik is, here I am ya Rasulullah. I'm here for you. Remember, we say Labbaik, Allahumma Labbaik. Here I am ya Allah. Allah called me, may Allah make us all go to Hajj. Inshallah. So Labbaik ya Rasulullah, I'm here for you ya Rasulullah. He says, Rasulullah, my shift is over. I've come here to offer you my break time for sleep. I want you to get some sleep. I'll sacrifice my sleep for you. And so the Rasulullah was so tired, he goes to the tent of Aisha. So even though the women and children were sent to another tribe, another camp in Medina, which is in the far end, it was called the camp of Banu Haris. So Banu Haris, my name is Haris by the way. Banu Haris, his tribe, basically he was on the richer side in the Ansar Sahabi, and he had a house that looked kind of like a fortress, like a cheap copy of the Jewish fortress. It was the only Arab fortress that the women and children could be secure in. And the Prophet Muhammad did not take a chance by giving the women and children to Banu Qurayzah, despite their promise that we are on your side. How can he trust them? Because of what Banu Nadir has done, because of what Banu Qurayzah did earlier. And so he sent all the women and children to the fortress of Banu Haris. Okay? So women and children are there. But the three wives of the Rasulullah, Zainab bint Jahash radiallahu anha, Salama radiallahu anha, and Aisha radiallahu anha, were in the tent near the trench with the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You see, Aisha radiallahu anha would not want to go without the Rasulullah. I don't care, I'm going to be with you. That's Aisha radiallahu anha. And Zainab bint Jahash and Aisha radiallahu anha would never agree on settling. They would both compete for the love of Rasulullah. And Salama was the wise wife of the Rasulullah. She was known as the lady of wisdom, right? And so she's there, you have two extremes in love. It was perfect combination in Ahzab. Anyway, in this case, the Rasulullah goes to the tent of Aisha anha, and Saad ibn Waqqas had offered his sleep hours to the Rasulullah. And so the Prophet said, okay, I will go sleep. You can guard here. And Aisha anha says, I saw the Rasulullah fall asleep, immediately started snoring. By the way, I have a habit of snoring. Alhamdulillah, when I found out that the Prophet snores, Alhamdulillah, it's a sunnah. Okay, good. So the Prophet starts snoring, he was so tired, you can only imagine. And Aisha anha says, I never forgot that favor of Saad ibn Abi Waqqas. I never forgot that favor. Now realize this, I just told you, cold, Medina cold, no parkas, no Canada Goose, no food, and enemies coming to attack you, and no sleep, and then give your sleep to somebody. Wallahi, I'll give 1 kg of gold, but I can't sacrifice my sleep because my prayer, my sanity, I mean, I'm about to be attacked. I need to be sane. You know, if we have an examination, the kids are sitting here. If you have an examination, how well do you want them to sleep? Right? Examination. And imagine this. So this is Saad ibn Abi Waqqas. This is just a tidbit of his sacrifice. By the way, last year in Uhud, it is Saad ibn Abi Waqqas who was firing the bows and arrows. He was an expert in bows and arrows, Saad ibn Abi Waqqas. He was the one who was firing bows and arrows when the Rasulullah was left all alone by himself, when all the Sahaba had to scatter, when Khalid ibn Walid came back for the last round, and Muslims suffered a lot of casualties. We'll do Battle of Uhud sometime. But it was Saad ibn Abi Waqqas. And at that moment, he got the greatest honor in Uhud, where the Prophet was sharpening the bows, the arrows, giving it to Saad and saying, "Take this, Ya Saad, may my mother and father be held in ransom for you." For the Prophet to say that may my mother and father be held in ransom for you, O Saad, there are only two Sahabi, and both are Ashar al-Bashara, for whom the Prophet has uttered these words. One is Saad ibn Abi Waqqas, the other is Zubayr radiallahu anhu, also Ashar al-Bashara. We're going to talk about him too. He plays a great deal of role in this. Anyway, so this is the story of Saad ibn Abi Waqqas. This is the guarding of the trench going on. Khalid ibn Walid on that side is figuring out what to do now. While this is happening, I'm going to now discuss a really sensitive thing, and we're going to move past it really quickly. But we have to talk about what's happening in the women and children's camp. Zubayr radiallahu anhu, I just told you, Ashar al-Bashar Sahabi. His son was born, Abdullah ibn Zubayr, also a Sahabi, and young Sahabi, really young Sahabi. He's about 5 or 6 years old at this time. So he's narrating what happened in his older age about during this time. And he says, all of us, that is children and women, were sent to the fortress of Banu Haris. And along with them, the old men, the old men who were like maybe 70, 75 years old, they can't do any kind of fight. Maybe they have Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or something. They can't fight, and so they were also put in there. And one Sahabi was also with us, Hassan ibn Thabit. How many of you remember who Hassan ibn Thabit was? You remember? Alhamdulillah, okay. We talked about the slander of Aisha anha, and he did something that I want to move past with. That is Hassan ibn Thabit. He was the official poet of the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Official poet. Now you understand this because you're coming, most of the people here sitting here are coming from a country who understands poetry, and the personality of people who are into poetry and everything is not feisty, it's not bows and arrows and all that. And so Hassan ibn Thabit radiallahu anhu was known to start shaking if he saw a sword. He could not hold a sword. And so there are some people, we know, in our families, in our societies, we know there are people who cannot do that despite being men. And so he was also asked to be with the women and children. Astaghfirullah, I don't mean any disrespect when I'm telling you this. I'm telling you this to make you understand that Allah has preserved this story for us for a reason. And when someone like Hassan ibn Thabit, who's the official poet of the Rasulullah, he is asked to be with the women and children, we can now learn from this, and we understand that not all of us have to be the best at something. You see, Brother Nabil, he might be an expert in, let's say, designing banners, let's say for example, and he does the best work for infographic to explain to non-Muslims what Islam is about, the 5 pillars and etc. Maybe my strength is being able to break it down. Maybe I can talk to people. Your strength perhaps might be how to argue back with someone who's talking vociferously against Islam. All of us are not meant to do the same thing. Shaitan is going to tell us, who do you think you are? You just looked at that girl today, you were watching this movie today, you were doing that today. You think you're going to be not talking about Islam or doing this banner? Like, who are you? This is what Shaitan does. What I'm telling you here, the reason this story is preserved is for us to learn that if Hassan ibn Thabit, who could not participate at the worst of time when everybody's required, when people are sacrificing their sleep for the Rasulullah, but he contributed in a way that no other Sahabi has been able to contribute. He did poetry. Now you will think, what is the big thing about poetry? Well, at that time, poetry was BBC. Now you know what I mean. BBC, CNN. If I just told you, hey, do you know there was an earthquake in Edmonton? You'll say, what? I don't feel anything. I'm like, hey, check the news. What are you going to check? CNN, BBC, something? Well, why do you believe it now? Because they have credibility. Well, in Mecca, the culture was, if you say, everybody, listen, there's an akhirah that's going to come. There are angels who come down with revelation. There are 2 angels sitting right here. Nobody's going to listen to you. Like, what are you talking about? But if you do the same talk at the Kaaba, in poetry, it becomes CNN. Whether people believe it or not, but they'll give credibility to it. If you listen to a crazy story on CNN, you'll still have some credibility for that story, even if you don't question the details of it. That was poetry at the time. Not today. Today it's just for recreation. But at the time, if you want to send a message, the Emperor of Rome and the Emperor of Persia, they're not just going to say, okay, we accept your message or we disregard your message. No, they're going to put some nice rhymes and rhythms. They're going to call some of the best poets, say, all right, write a letter for them. Writing letters is not just, hello, how are you? You have to have some of this to make a person listen to you. And so Hassan ibn Thabit was the one that the Prophet used to say, get up, O Hassan, and fight back. Do the poetry, that fight, not the fight of the sword. And so his role was that. Khalid ibn Walid, who would become a Muslim eventually, he conquered the Roman Empire. He was the military strategist, and I did not intend to talk about him right now because this has nothing to do with him right now, but just to give you an idea. Khalid ibn Walid, his military tactics, one of them was called the pincer move. It's a V move where you thin out the army, the opposition army, and you're fighting. It looks as if you're engaged in this manner, but actually you're bringing them down like this, and by the end of it, they're cornered on both sides. This was called a pincer move. They still study this move in the military academy in Stanford, in the United States, in Oxford. They still teach them the pincer move. And Khalid ibn Walid did that at the time when they had nothing. They had horses and the regular weapons like swords and everything, and Khalid ibn Walid's strategies. That's it. So what I'm saying is, his contribution was not Bukhari hadith. How many hadiths do you have on Khalid ibn Walid? But whose name comes up when you think of hadith? Who's narrating? Who's narrating? Give me one name that you think of when you think of any hadith. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. He's not known for those practices. He's known for narration of hadith because he had a memory. At the time when the Umar was compiling the Quran, Abu Hurairah is busy giving the hadith in the masjid. So much that Umar became angry. He's like, you're mixing Quran with hadith? I'm trying to preserve the Quran and now you bring hadith? People are going to be mixed up and confused. Is this Quran or hadith? Umar for a period had banned preaching of hadith. Realize that this time Quran is being compiled. Right? If astaghfirullah, somebody put, actions will be judged by their intentions, as if Allah said this. No, this is Rasulullah saying this. Abu Hurairah was asked not to preach, but he continued preaching still. Hassan ibn Thabit, the same Sahabi we were talking about, once he was doing poetry at the time of Umar radiallahu anhu's Umar radiallahu is angry person, right? He walks in and he listens to Shair Shairi going on in the masjid. He becomes angry. He's like, you dare recite Shair Shairi, poetry, in the masjid of Rasulullah? Hassan ibn Thabit is there. Abu Hurairah is sitting next to him, and he says, are you surprised at this? For wallahi, I used to do this in front of a person better than you. That is the Rasulullah. Yeah, Abu Hir. Abu Hir was his little name given out of love. Abu Hir, kitten. Abu Hurairah, father of the cat. And so, why don't you go and tell Umar? Is it not true? I ask you by Allah, tell him. He says, yes, I heard him recite. Because he was known for his memory. So he's saying, yeah, Abu Hurairah, Google, tell him. And so, everybody has their strengths, is what I'm trying to say. Khalid ibn Walid had his own strengths, Abu Ubadah had his own. So everybody. So, Saad ibn Muadh, we just talked about it. He was an expert at sniper shooting. Everybody has their own strengths. And Ali radiallahu anhu was an all-rounder. He's a rare Sahabi where you get everything. So not everybody's going to be Ali radiallahu anhu. Okay. So now you understand these sacrifices going on at the trench. We are going to now get to the battles of the trench. I just wanted to finish with what happened here in the fortress side. So all the men and women and children are there. Eventually, Banu Qurayzah is going to flip over. They are going to betray. Okay? So, I'm going to come now to the Jewish side. We have Abu Sufyan's forces, Khalid ibn Walid, Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl, figuring out how to attack. We have Madinah doing all the sacrifices, Sahaba. And now we have the Jews about to flip over. So, Banu Nadir, Huyay ibn Akhtab, the father of Safiyya, radiallahu anha, our mother. What a father and what a mother, right? The father is the worst of the worst and the mother is the best of the best. So Huyay ibn Akhtab comes to, in the middle of the night, comes to Banu Qurayzah in Medina from the backside. This one man. And he's standing at the fortress of Banu Qurayzah, which is in Medina. And says, open the door, Ya Ka'ab. Ka'ab ibn al-Asad was the leader of Banu Qurayzah. Open the door, Ya Ka'ab. I need to talk to you. Really important conversation. This is not the time for you to close the door. And Ka'ab ibn al-Asad, if you remember, he had given a qasam. He said, Wallahi ya Rasulullah. He did not say Ya Rasulullah. He used to say Abu Qasim. They would not call the Rasulullah. They did not believe in the Rasulullah as the Rasulullah. He said, Wallahi, we are happy with you. Remember? This is literally, I'm signing a passport. I'm giving oath of citizenship. This is what I'm saying. I'm completely with you. And then he's going to do khiyana. He says, get out of here. We have nothing to do with you. So he is trying to stick to his oath. So Huyay ibn Akhtab goes, you're asking me to leave? Open the door. I need to talk to you. I have brought something that you're not going to believe. And he has brought 10,000 strong army. All of this mastermind is Huyay ibn Akhtab. He came to Abu Sufyan and said, let's do this partnership. And so Ka'ab ibn al-Asad says, listen man, you are bad news. These are his words. You are bad news. You are like a cloud that brings thunderstorms and lightning and wind and scares all the animals, but brings no rain. We get no harvest. All we get is trailer and no movie. And so you are bad news. We have nothing to do with you. Why is he scared of this guy? Because this is the one who before was a mastermind, if you remember the assassination attempt last week. Trying to throw a rock on the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that failed, and he had been kicked out. Now, Banu Qurayzah does not want to go through this. We are fine, man. We are fine with this guy sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We don't want to be betraying him. In any case, there's something you should know. It's a little sensitive, but the Jews don't like being called stingy. They don't like being called misers. And so he used the one tactic that the Jews won't like. So he says, I know why you don't want to open the door. Because you'll have to feed me, give me food and water and drinks and juices and alcohol. I understand you're trying to save on your beer, whatever, right? The moment he says this, he goes, what? And he opens the door. And so he opens it up, they come in and he says, all right, now listen, let's sit down. I'm a Jew, you're a Jew, let's talk. I have brought with me oceans of men. And in his perspective, there are oceans of men, 10,000. What will 2,500 Sahaba do? What is the ratio? He says, I brought oceans of men with me. All I'm asking you to do, you don't have to fight. You have a fortress. All I'm saying is, let's switch sides. Come on my side. I'm going to be here with you. Let them fight the Muslims, and you're going to get the whole land back, and then I'm going to come back in here and everything. That's all I'm saying. He says, we have no problem with this man. Why you are just nothing but bad news. So realize they don't want to cheat the Rasulullah, not because they believe in the Rasulullah, but because they know the consequences. They've been seeing what's happening with Banu Qurayzah first, and then Banu Nadir. Eventually he bogs them down and everything, and eventually say, okay, done. So what do you want us to do? He says, get the women and children. That's going to destroy the Sahaba. You see, I can fight as much as you want me to fight with whoever is talking something about anybody, right? The moment I get a phone call from Edmonton government that your wife and children are in custody or in prison, it's going to sink my heart like there's no tomorrow. There's nothing that comes close to that pain. Banu Qurayzah is asked, go and get the women and children. They have a cheap fortress, you know how to get in there because they know the fortress technology. They say, all right, let's do it. Banu Qurayzah sends 2 men to Banu Haris fortress where women and children are there. Now, before I get to what they're doing, let's come to the side of the Rasulullah. The Prophet has spies, CIAs, agents, checking everywhere. And they find out that Banu Qurayzah is doing something suspicious. There's conversation going on about something. Who's gonna go and check who they're talking to? Now realize this is a top secret conversation happening between Banu Qurayzah and Banu Nadir. If somebody sees this, that person is dead. We can't let this information out. Who's gonna volunteer to check if Banu Qurayzah is still on our side? And it is cold, again, don't forget. Hungry, no food, no water, attack in front of you. Everything is like, it's been a week, it's been a month by now. And Zubayr radiallahu anhu, he says, I will go there, Ya Rasulullah. And the Prophet gave him the highest badge of honor on this and said, every Nabi has a disciple, has a Hawari. My Hawari is Zubayr. And for the rest of his life, he used to call himself the Hawari of Rasulullah. And his son, Abdullah ibn Zubayr, remember I just told you he was 5 years old at this time, and he used to call himself the son of the Hawari of the Rasulullah. That's a badge of honor. And so Zubayr radiallahu anhu, by the way, Zubayr radiallahu anhu is one of the 3 Sahabi, Hamza, Umar and Zubayr, who openly declared in Mecca, when everybody's being tortured, they openly declared their Islam. They said, I'm going to Madinah, I'm going to do Hijrah, come behind me and see what happens to you. Hamza radiallahu anhu said this, Umar radiallahu anhu said this, and Zubayr radiallahu anhu said that. He was a ferocious fighter. He was really strong. He was known for his sword skills, just like Ali. Like sometimes they used to even compete with each other. Zubayr radiallahu anhu and Ali. So Zubayr radiallahu anhu goes, and we can only imagine because we don't have the details. This is not a hadith, right? We're just imagining this. He would have been standing at a safe distance, observing what's going on. And all he sees is, this man is Huyay ibn Akhtar. He was expelled. He's from Banu Nadir. What's he doing here? And how is it that the Banu Qurayzah is talking to him when they're drinking tea together, or coffee, or whatever they're drinking together? And they're exchanging whatever, bows and arrows and weapons taken out, armor is being put. They have clearly betrayed us. Obviously, that's all it looks like. And so he sees it all, quietly slips out. And the Prophet had said to him, if you have good news, announce it. to the Khandaq. If it is bad news, just tell me a passcode. Give me a secret code. Don't say they have betrayed us, because people will hear this. Give me a password. And so Zubayr comes back and he says, Ya Rasulullah, al-Rajia. What is al-Rajia? It was the tragedy that happened to the Muslims last year when a tribe between Medina and Mecca fake converted to Islam and said, send us Qurra, send us teachers, send us Sahaba who can teach us Islam. But it was actually a tactic set up by Abu Sufyan and them. He paid them money, he said, bring some Sahaba, so we were going to kill them. And so 70 Sahaba's body were piled up and they were killed. And some of them were sent to Makkah, to Abu Sufyan. Go and enjoy. Guantanamo. Makkah is Guantanamo. You can imagine this. And one of the Sahabi, I mean, this is not a part of Ahzab, but I'll tell you since we are in this. One of the Sahabi was ransomed off and sent to Abu Sufyan. He was an old friend of Abu Sufyan, this Sahabi. Abu Sufyan is sitting there. Now think, I'm sitting here. All of you, astaghfirullah, are from Meccan side. And I'm here. You have all kinds of things that you can do to me. There's nobody coming to my rescue. Abu Sufyan is sitting there and he looks at him with this smirk and says, tell me, what an amazing partner you were with us and the good times. For him, the good times are the times of Jahiliyyah. It was such a nice time. You were friends together. You were doing business together. You would have made so much money. You left all your money. You left everything. You came naked, empty-handed to Medina. What did you get? This is what you got. We brought you back here. Tell me, wallahi, are you not regretting that this man, Rasulullah, made you come here? Don't you feel bad? Tell me. He's enjoying the pain of this Sahabi. And this Sahabi says, if I knew that the Rasulullah was going to be pricked by a thorn, right now, if I knew he was going to be pricked by a thorn, I would rather have myself sliced off before I would get a chance to let him be pricked by a thorn. Like, you are intimidating me. He didn't say this, but you are intimidating me, thinking I'm going to say, yes, please spare me, don't kill me, I made a mistake. If right now, when I know you're going to torture and kill me, if I knew there was a thorn that's going to prick the Rasulullah, take my life before a thorn pricks the Rasulullah. Do what you please. And then you can imagine what Abu Sufyan would have done to him. And then he was shaheed. This is what happened. This was called the incident of Al-Rajia. So all the Muslims are already, they know about the tragedy of Al-Rajia. So it's a pretty strong password. You cannot think of a better password than this, right? So Zubayr comes and says, Ya Rasulullah, Al-Rajia. Because the same kind of betrayal. Abu Sufyan's forces, they've come with Abu Sufyan's side, they're going to murder our people now. Now, unfortunately, a sixth group that is against Islam is going to take shape now, the Munafiq. Within the ranks of Sahaba, there are people who are not actually Sahaba, they hate the Rasulullah, and they don't call the Rasulullah by his name, they just say Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These people, if you remember the last hadith before we closed, I said the Prophet shattered the rock with 3 strikes. The first strike, I can see the land of Syria. Roman Empire is going to be gifted to us. Second strike, I can see Madain, I can see Iran. Allah is going to gift us Iran. Third strike, I can see Yemen, the doors of Sana'a. When we listen to this hadith, what do we think? Yes, absolutely, that's what happened. If he saw, we'll get it. Now, it's easy for us to say this because 5 years later, or 6 years later, we are actually going to conquer those lands. Can you believe this? Justin Trudeau has been the Prime Minister of Canada longer than the time this miracle is going to happen. Imagine if I came in here when Justin Trudeau just became the Prime Minister and I said, we're going to conquer the world or whatever, like we're going to take over Roman Empire and Iran Empire. Who's going to believe me? And it happened right there. But these Munafiq, all they can see is, and astaghfirullah, they're going to say something absolutely horrible. They say, this is the man, astaghfirullah, I have to talk like Munafiq, you understand, right? This is the man who first said, oh, I can see the keys of Syria, I can see the keys of Iran, I can see the keys of Yemen. He was doing all of this because he knows everybody's going to die. Who's going to know? So just say, I got Rome, I got Iran, I got everything. And astaghfirullah, he says, and now we can't even go out to take a dump. I'm trying to sanitize it. You understand what he's trying to say. In Arabic, he would have said. We cannot even go for defecating. Forget about getting Iran and this and that. This is the man who was giving us all these dreams. You want us to fight for him? Never. We're going to go save our wives and children. And so 300 approximately, out of the already thinly stretched, people are sacrificing their sleep And now 300 of them leave and go back to the city to save their children, women and children. Why did they go? Because something has happened there, which I did not tell you. Now I'm going to tell you what's happening there. Banu Qurayzah sent 2 men in armor in the middle of the dark. There's no lights there. Saad ibn Muadh, the only Sahabi, is there. Sumayyah, the mother of Zubayr radiallahu anh, is equally as strong as Zubayr radiallahu anh. The entire family is amazing. Hamza radiallahu anh, Zubayr radiallahu anh, his mother Sumayyah radiallahu anha. She listens to a sound in the middle of the night. The Muslims are like almost in a different city. This is quite far, right? In an hour by camel. She hears the sound, all the women are there, everybody's scared because you don't know what's going to happen. And they hear 2 people coming in with the clinking and clanking. You can see it's the swords and the armor. There's no Sahaba coming here. So they know it's the Banu Qurayzah. There's got to be some enemy. And so Sumayyah radiallahu anha says to Hassan ibn Thabit radiallahu anhu, go outside and do something. They're coming. Somebody's coming, go. And so Hassan ibn Thabit, sadly, he says, please don't embarrass me. You know I can't. Please don't ask me to do something I can't do. There's no choice remaining. So Sumayyah radiallahu anha herself puts her shawl, like a man style, wraps it up, takes a dagger in her mouth. This is like watching a movie. Wallahi, this is better than any movie. Puts the dagger in her mouth in the middle of the night, in the top of the fortress of Banu Haris. Waits for this man to come up. There are 2 people, so one man is climbing up faster. Waits for him to come up. Waits for the dagger, for the guy to just come in. As soon as he rises up, she pierces the dagger into the neck, and his entire head is pulled out, and his body falls. As soon as the body falls, guess what happens to the other guy? He's looking at the body falling. And then she knows this other guy is watching, so she takes the head and plops it on him. It's super scary. What a Sahabiyya. As soon as, I told you what the Jews are. The moment you fight, see what happens. And this is a lady fighting. This other Banu Qurayzah Jew, immediately as soon as he sees the head of his partner, they just started climbing and the head is coming down. Obviously they will think there are some men guarding the fortress. Immediately he leaves the fortress and starts screaming, running back. Oh my God, they have enforcements, they have reinforcements. And he comes running back to Banu Qurayzah. This is happening here, but the Sahaba don't know what's going to happen. They're worried about their wife and kids. The Munafiq have left. But they cannot leave, they cannot even pray Asr. I just told you. The bows and arrows are non-stop firing. From Khalid ibn Walid's side, behind the trench, because that's all they can do right now. And Khalid ibn Walid tried to unsuccessfully enter through another side, but he was stopped by the Sahaba. And so nobody died on either side, and so they retreated. Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl came from the other side. Again, they were stopped and they retreated. So far they're keeping. Now the Sahaba are getting thin. The trench was heavily guarded, now it's thinning out. Now, the greatest of the battles, the highlight of the Khandaq in terms of battles, the strongest person that was known on the Quraysh side, all of Arabia knew it. His name was Amr ibn Abd Wudd. Not Abdullah, slave of Allah, slave of Wudd, one of the names of the idols. Astaghfirullah, what a horrible name. Amr ibn Abd Wudd, this man was the person to be scared of. He used to have this red turban known. It was kind of like, you know, in football you have this number 10 jersey. You know what the number 10 is like? Messi, Ronaldo, right? So that was like the number 10 badge. Nobody can touch him. He was the strongest person. Amr ibn Abd Wudd. And he was in his prime at this time to fight. And he was specifically chosen by everybody. And he was paid a lot of money. He slips in through the Khandaq, which again shows you how amazing he must be from their side. Astaghfirullah, he's a kafir, but I'm just saying how amazing from their perspective. Amr ibn Abd Wudd comes in front of the trench now, and on the Muslim side. And he says, who's gonna fight me? Bring me your best. Let's end this. Now this is gonna be a huge psychological warfare, right? Psychological battle won from the side of the mushriks, if they win this. Because then the more of them are gonna start thinking, let's cross the trench. Otherwise they're scared to cross the trench if they're killed. And so, I just told you Zubayr, such a great spy mission that he has done. Let me just tell you this one more story before I talk about Amr ibn Abd Wudd. There was another person who crossed over. His name was Naufl ibn Abdullah. Naufl, from the mushrik side. He said, who's going to fight me? Zubayr came to fight. Zubayr the one I just talked about. And they did the fight. They spun around. They did all of the duel that you do. And Zubayr slashed Naufl into half. He split his body into half. The skull, the bone, the muscles, the skeleton, everything. One slash, and he came back. And the Sahaba are looking at his sword. You know, in cricket, when you hit a really good shot, and you come back to the stadium, they'll look at your bat. Good bat. So Zubayr they're looking at his sword. It's nothing different, it's the same sword. So Zubayr jokes, he says, it's not the sword, it's the guy holding the sword. Alhamdulillah. I mean, it is allowed in circumstance of only the battlefield. We should not be doing this outside of the battlefield, of course. But this is Zubayr radiallahu anhu. His mother has done what she has just done, I just told you. And Zubayr did this. Amr ibn Abd Wudd is the prized jewel of the Quraysh. He comes in, slips in, and he says, who's going to fight me? Bring me your best. Zubayr is right there. The same Zubayr does not get up. Umar is there. I mean, look at the quality of Sahaba we have sitting here. Hamza has passed away. Everybody of the elite is there. Everybody is quiet because this is Amr ibn Abd Wudd. I mean, everybody is quiet. Ali radiallahu anh says, I will fight you. Even the Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, Ya Ali, it's Amr ibn Abd Wudd. The Prophet is saying this. So Ali sits down. What are you going to say when the Prophet is saying this? And so he sees nobody's getting up. So he yells again, is there anyone? So Ali says, yes, I'm the one, I'm going to fight you for the second time. And the Prophet again for the second time says, Ya Ali. Realize Ali, yes, he is not the son of the Rasulullah, but he has been living in the house of the Rasulullah like a son. You know, my son. I mean, he's the most beloved thing. You are from me and I'm from you, Ya Ali. And so, as a father, I don't want to call him the father, but you understand what I mean, that fatherly love that he has. Ya Ali, this is Amr ibn Abd Wudd. Now remember, Ali was at Badr, standing right next to Hamza, and they did the Mubadah, right? But this is Amr ibn Abd Wudd, not any other person. That is how strong this man is. That the Rasulullah is saying, Ya Ali, this is Amr ibn Abd Wudd. For the third time, and everybody is still quiet. And all the Sahaba have the opportunity to say yes. And he says, so there's nobody here? 2,500 people and nobody can fight me? Ali can't take it anymore, and he gets up, he says, I will fight you. And for the third time the Prophet says, Ya Ali, it's Amr ibn Abd Wudd. And in a rare moment, you're probably never going to find this in the seerah except for two occasions, Ali radiallahu anh says, even if it is Amr ibn Abd Wudd, Ya Rasulullah. When the Rasulullah sees this level of confidence, he says, okay, faddal. Okay, if you want to go ahead. I mean, complete trust in Allah, and the Prophet is given check mark, okay. And so when Ali walks over, realize he's still young. Ali will be a Khalifa and he will die at the age of 63, same as the Rasulullah. And so many years later, right now he must be in his 20s. And so he comes, Amr ibn Abd Wudd says, and he recognizes Ali, because the Qurayshi is Qurayshi. He says, Ali? He says, yes, it's me. Your father, Abu Talib, he was a friend of mine. I have nothing against you. I have no desire to kill you. What he's saying is, you're a child. Who are you, man? Get out. Give me someone better. Astaghfirullah. Your father was I know who you were. You were a kid. I know your father. We used to do business. I have nothing against you. I have no desire to kill you. Give me someone else. Ali radiallahu says, but I have a desire to kill you. When you say this, then the Jahili mind, oh yeah, okay, finish, that's it, we're going to fight them. And so he says, okay, if that's the case, all right, how dare you say that? He's fully charged now, and that's what Ali wanted. Lose your senses. And then they begin. Battle of Khandaq does not have a lot of battles. It is more digging Khandaq and strategies, which we're going to come to. This is the battle that happens, because this one man will defeat the entire thinking of the army. Ghatafan is like, I'm not going to fight these guys. If they can beat your best guy, I'm not coming in. That's going to happen now. Ali radiallahu anh gets up, and I can only imagine it must be Dhuhr or Asr time, late afternoon. And the Sahaba are describing this duel, that we could hear the clinking and the clanking of the armors, and they're fully ready, roped. And he walks up to him, Bismillah. And he takes out, and Amr ibn Abd Wudd gives a severe blow. And they both are so quick against each other that the dust starts to roll up. And when you have a dust bowl, eventually you cannot see what's happening. So the clinking and clanking is going on, and it's all surrounded with dust. And the Sahaba are trying to see who's winning, what's happening. And now they can't see anything. It is that dusty. All they can hear is sounds. I can only imagine the sounds like, cling, cling. This is what's going on. That's all they can see. They know their fight is going on. And this is not in any book, but this is something I've delved deep into. And I was just thinking, this must be the moment when the Prophet 3 times he said, this is Amr ibn Abd Wudd. At this moment, what was Rasulullah thinking? I would just imagine. Of course, I'm not going in his mind to tell you, but I'm just telling you my thinking, understanding. He must be thinking, I lost my uncle at Badr, at Uhud. I lost Abu Talib in Mecca. I lost Khadija in Mecca. Am I going to lose Ali now? Is this Allah's test? And then you can only imagine if our daughter, our son is in surgery and there's 8 hours of wait. Those 8 hours are the worst 8 hours of your life. You're thinking of all the things, all the times you yelled at your son or your daughter. You're thinking of the worst, and you're crying and you're praying to Allah. And that prayer is the most beautiful prayer. We remember Allah more in our cries than we do in our happiness. And he must be just thinking of all the times he has raised Ali and all the things they've done together. And this is the husband of his most beloved daughter. And he must be in tears at this time, not knowing what's happening. You see, if you can see what's happening, okay, you're in the battle. If all you can see is dust, then you're just thinking, Ya Allah, please protect Ali. Anyway, this is just my understanding of it. Anyway, all the Sahaba are really looking into what's going on. And eventually, Amr ibn Abd Wudd comes up, gets off his horse, takes a really fast charge, and slices through Ali radiallahu anhu's shield. And Ali radiallahu anhu's shield, imagine the strength of this guy. Ali radiallahu anhu's shield broke in half. And Ali radiallahu anhu, at the same time as his shield broke, with his other hand, takes the sword and slices it into the main artery and the neck of Amr ibn Abd Wudd. Now the strength you need and the reflexes you need to do this. Understand, you can either do this or you can do this. You can't do both. And with the strength of Amr ibn Abd Wudd, if a shield can break, good luck trying to do anything. You can't do anything. You can have 6 people standing, you can't do anything if you can break the shield. For him to jump, and you have 1 second, you don't get a practice match. You have 1 slice, at the same time you defend the shield, the same time you have to slice it in. So he just had this slice, that's it, at the perfect time. You attack while you defend at the same time. You miss out on one, your neck is gone, and he's escaping. So he comes in running, gets off his horse, he's so confident, and he slices through the shield of Ali radiallahu anhu, and the shield breaks. Ali radiallahu anhu takes the shield which broke, takes the sword on this side, and at the same millisecond, he slices back. And Amr ibn Abd Wudd is the one killed. Now, they must have only heard a sound, not knowing who got it, because of the dust bowl. And so the Sahaba had heart in their throats. And they heard the sound of a plop falling off the horse. And not knowing what happened. And it is from this moment, within the dust bowl, they hear a sound, Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar. I can only imagine right after that moment, what must have happened. We just know that the Sahaba immediately went into takbir mode. They were, Allahu Akbar, the happiness. Astaghfirullah, we are so happy seeing a cricket match when we went. Astaghfirullah, look at the happiness we have. This is our heroes now, right? Think of the happiness they must have had at that time, and think of what the Rasulullah must have gone through at this moment when he said Allahu Akbar. It is from the sound of Allahu Akbar that they knew Amr ibn Abd Wudd is dead. Ali radiallahu anhu is victorious again at the hands of Allah. This is Amr ibn Abd Wudd's defeat. And the Quraysh, when they got the news Amr is gone, they were so shocked and they can do nothing. And by the way, this man is really popular and they need his body. So they send a message to the Rasulullah and say, can you please give his body back to us? We'll pay you money. And so the Prophet says, this body is najis. Its price is najis, is filthy, is dirty. And we don't sell bodies. We don't buy bodies for money. You can take it. We have no need of it. From this we learn a filthy understanding that we have to give the same respect to a dead body as we do to a living body. Breaking the bone of a dead body is the same as breaking the bone of a living man in our religion. And so even if it was Amr ibn Abd Wudd, He was given back. He says, you can take him. And so they took him back. Okay, and I've told you about Khalid ibn Walid, he could not do anything. Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl could not do anything. The fortress side of events, I've told you what happened. Now, I forgot to tell you one thing. Ghatafan is seeing all of this happening. They're like, we came into this partnering thinking we'll get the money, but right now, based on what is happening, there's a trench, things are not progressing. Let us go to Medina and just tell them something. Give them a proposal. Just like we got a proposal from Abu Sufyan, let us give a proposal to Medina. So a guy from Ghatafan, and if you know from last week's conversation, they are soulless. They will sell their kith and kin for money. So they come to the Rasulullah and says, listen, Abu Sufyan and Khaybar, that is Huyay ibn Akhtab, they have given us half of the produce of Khaybar, half the money generated by their city for 1 year. That's the money they are giving us, which is why we're going to fight with you. If you, Medina, are willing to give us 33%, not 50, 33%, then we won't fight, we'll leave. Now imagine, 2,000, 2,500 from the Ghatafan alone. Immediately the Ahzab is cut by 33%. That's a big number. But what they're saying is, you better pay us money, and then we're not going to attack you. It's not a bad offer, militarily, tactically speaking. I mean, it is an offer, but the Medina belongs to Aus and Khazraj, the two tribes of Medina. And the leaders of Aus and Khazraj was Saad ibn Muadh, you remember from our conversation last week, and Saad ibn Ubadah. So the Prophet Muhammad comes to Saad ibn Muadh and Saad ibn Ubadah and says, this is the offer of Ghatafan. What do you want to say? You want to say yes? No? What do you want? So Saad ibn Muadh thought that the Prophet is saying, let's accept it. That's what he thought he's saying. And Saad ibn Muadh also is thinking this. So they asked, Ya Rasulullah, is this your opinion or is it from Allah that we should accept this? The Prophet says, no, it's not from Allah. I'm just asking you, what do you think? I'm just putting it on the table for you. What do you think we should do? He says, if it is not from Allah, Ya Rasulullah, then if I can just say this, Ya Rasulullah, we have never been humiliated in Jahiliyyah. Nobody has ever conquered Medina, even in Jahiliyyah. Then why should we humiliate ourselves in Islam? Nobody has ever conquered us in its Jahiliyyah. Now when we are Muslims, we should be conquered and give our money to these people, these sellouts. We'll fight. We'll fight. Listening to this, Rasulullah says, okay, if that's what you want, Alhamdulillah. And so they say to Ghatafan, thanks, but no thanks. We don't need your offer. We're not going to give you money. If you want to leave, just leave. It's good for you. If you want to fight, we'll fight. And so Ghatafan is back. Now, it's going to get, up until now, it was fights and battles. The juiciest part of Khandaq, of Battle Ahzab, starts now. This is what makes it the most memorable. Remember how this Banu Nadir, Huyay ibn Akhtab, was at Banu Qurayzah? And he was telling them, come on, be on my side and do this betrayal and everything. Alright. When they did the betrayal that they did, and Banu Qurayzah, Zubayr spotted that they're betraying us, and he went and gave the password to the Rasulullah, Ya Rasulullah Raja. They betrayed us. And the Munafiq heard this, and they immediately started leaving. They said, this is the man. Remember I just told you? The Prophet then told Saad ibn Muadh and Saad ibn Ubadah, the leaders of Aus and Khazraj, to go and try to do a last-minute negotiation with Banu Qurayzah. You see, the Ghatafan is finicky. Maybe Banu Qurayzah is also getting finicky, and they are finicky as heck. Remember, they don't like this Banu Nadir. They already say you're bad news, man. So they are finicky already. So the Prophet says to the two leaders, now realize Saad ibn Muadh, the leader of Aus, he's a higher maqam than Saad ibn Ubadah, but both of them, radiallahu anhu. Saad ibn Muadh will eventually be shaheed in this battle. Okay? And he's the greatest Sahabi of Medina, the greatest Ansari Sahabi, Saad ibn Muadh. Last week I talked a little bit about him. Saad ibn Muadh is the leader of Aus. All of Aus became Muslim because he became Muslim, just so you know. And his Aus is the one that does business partnership with Banu Qurayzah, the last remaining Jewish tribe. So they were business friends. And so Saad ibn Muadh is especially feeling humiliated for the sake of the Rasulullah, that my people have betrayed the Rasulullah. Saad ibn Muadh is also the leader of Khazraj, but he's not a direct participant in this. He's just going to go with them and he's going to stay quiet. So Saad ibn Muadh and Saad ibn Muadh had an anger. He was like Umar, radiallahu anhu style, but from Medina. He was the Madri Umar. So they go to Banu Qurayzah. By now, Banu Nadir, Huyay ibn Akhtab is there. Banu Qurayzah, they're open, they've already done whatever they can do. They've already tried to do what I just told you with the women and children. Saad ibn Muadh and Saad ibn Ubadah arrive in Banu Qurayzah and say, open the door. Yeah, Ka'ab is the leader of Banu Qurayzah. Now they are actually scared of Saad ibn Muadh. I told you he was a person who was of anger, and he was the leader. Banu Qurayzah respected him as a leader. I mean, they did not believe in his, at the time he was mushrik, they didn't believe in mushrik religion, but for business partnership, for everything, he was the most important business partner. And so when they see Saad has arrived, they close the door because they're scared. He says, open the door. What's going on with you people? And Saad ibn Muadh, they open the door finally, and Saad ibn Muadh says, what are you people doing? How dare you do this? Have you not seen what happened in Banu Qaynuqa? Have you not seen what happened in Banu Nadir? And now you do this? He said, do what? We are our own people, you're your own people. He says, do you not know the constitution of Madinah? And I don't know if he showed the constitution copy that he had, or there was a constitution copy hanging in the Jewish tribe's house, but somehow they had the paper. And so he says, do you not see our constitution? How dare you go against this? This is khiyana. And in front of Saad ibn Muadh, Banu Qurayzah says, what constitution? And they tear it up on his face. Get up. Like this. This is Saad ibn Muadh. You can now understand that of all the Jewish tribes, they have turned out to be the worst, at the worst of times, and they've done what they've done to the women and children. Alhamdulillah, was better than his mother who did what she did. So Saad ibn Muadh, he had an anger. He also loses his mind and he starts cussing too. He says, you people are this, and you people are that, and you people are this. Saad ibn Ubadah, who was just standing up until now, listening to this conversation, he now hugs Saad ibn Muadh and says, my brother, ya Saad, the matter is much worse than cussing. I mean, they're openly treacherous now. You think cussing at them is going to help? We have gone way beyond the fact that we can cuss at each other. They're agreeing that we're going to tear up the treaty and everything. Now, what is the point of cussing now? The matter is much worse than cussing, my brother. Let's go back to the Rasulullah and tell them what has happened. And so Saad ibn Muadh is especially hurt at this. And then they go back and they tell the Rasulullah, and now when it is confirmed, the level of treachery, the Prophet says, Allahu Akbar. By the way, we should say this when we have bad news, that's what you should say. But the Prophet is saying Allahu Akbar, the Sahaba also say Allahu Akbar, but for two different reasons. The Sahaba are now scared for their women and the children and everybody. And the Prophet ﷺ is now, he has the yaqeen that, okay, Allah has decided to clean up Madinah from the filth. It's going to be only our city now. That's what Allah, now I understand what is Allah's plan. That's what He's thinking. Everybody's surrounded, everybody is scared. Banu Qurayzah is flipped, but the iman, his level of trust in Allah is going to protect us. How? I don't know. But now I understand why they have flipped, because now Madinah is going to be Muslims. So Saad ibn Muadh, I told you last week about his maqam, and I've told you about Musab ibn Umayr converting him and everything, so I'm going to skip that part. Saad ibn Muadh is now at the trench, and remember they were bows and arrows being fired. Saad ibn Muadh comes to visit his mother. He's going to be shaheed in this battle. He comes to his mother, and he wants to say goodbye one last time, not knowing if he's going to come back. And his mother was with Aisha anha's tent, Saad. So he comes to say goodbye, and his mother says, what are you doing here? Why don't you go be with the Rasulullah? Why are you with me? Go and take care of the Rasulullah. Astaghfirullah, you're wasting time here. Look at her mother. Look at his mother. And he's trying to kiss his mother for the last time, not knowing if it's going to be the last time. And Aisha is looking at this. And as soon as Saad ibn Muadh leaves the tent, Aisha says to Saad's mother, how sparse is his armor? His armor, protection, it's so less. He was covered at the hands, the face, the head, and he was open here. And that's exactly where he's going to be hit with the bow and arrow. It's going to go straight into his shoulder, it's going to pierce into his neck, and one of the really important veins is going to burst, and he's going to have blood loss, and eventually he's not going to immediately be shaheed. He's going to play a pivotal role in this battle of Khandaq. Eventually he will be shaheed about a month later with the blood loss, but not before he does something. And so this man, the person who fired at Saad, Hibab ibn al-Ariqah, this man who fired the bow and arrow, ibn al-Ariqah, he says, take this. And I am Hibab ibn al-Arq. To this Saad says, أَرَّقَ اللَّهُ وَجْهَكَ فِي النَّارِ. Ariqa, he says, أَرَّقَ اللَّهُ وَجْهَكَ فِي النَّارِ. He says, may Allah cause you to sweat in nar, in fire. He reverses his own talk. And it hits him, it pierces through his neck, the vein, the arteries, they get affected, and now he has a blood loss. And at that time also we had nurses in tents, and there was one particular Sahabiyya who then was taking care of him full time as a medical assistant for him, taking care of him. Saad ibn Muadh, in this blood loss, he does a dua to Allah, and this is the dua of the greatest Sahabi of Medina. He says, Ya Allah, if I am going to have to do more fights, more jihad for the sake of Rasulullah against the Quraysh, then please don't let me die, because I want to do jihad against the Quraysh. But if this is it, if this is the last battle, then you can take me if you think I've done. For the sake of Allah, if I've done this, then you can let me die. But please don't let me die until I get to see what happens with Banu Qurayzah for what they have done to the Rasulullah, the betrayal. Ya Allah, don't let me close my eyes until I see what Banu Qurayzah gets as a result of what they've done. I want to see what happens to them. He does this dua. Remember this dua. Now, we're going to come to Saad ibn Muadh much later now, when eventually the battle is going to be over. Then we're going to come to Banu Qurayzah. That'll be next week. What happens when the worst of the worst scenario is happening? A massive turn of events, an unbelievable turn of events. A man from Ghatafan, Nuaym ibn Masood, radiallahu anhu, I gave you the spoiler, comes from Ghatafan, walks over, crosses the Khandaq in broad daylight. The Sahaba are all ready, and he says, Ashhadu annaka Muhammad Rasulullah. I have come here to tell you that I'm a Muslim, Ya Rasulullah. Allahu Akbar, Alhamdulillah, Ghatafan, those sellouts. And then from them, one of the greatest people becomes a Sahabi. He's going to completely change the course of the Ahzab. And the details we'll discuss next week. But you need to know who is Nuaym ibn Masood. Nuaym ibn Masood al-Ghatafani is a special friend of Abu Sufyan, is a Ghatafani, and a special friend of Banu Qurayzah. He used to do business with Madinah, from Ghatafan, close to Madinah. Abu Sufyan once used his services 2 years ago, or 1 year ago. What happened was, after Badr, they said, the Quraysh said, we're going to meet you again next year at Uhud. And they met them at Uhud. And at Uhud there was a stalemate. Neither the Muslims completely won, and the Mushriks did cause a lot of casualties to the Muslims. And then Abu Sufyan, it's a famous story where he was at the mountains and Rasulullah is injured, and Abu Bakr is there, Umar is there, and Abu Sufyan is yelling out, is your Rasulullah alive? Is Muhammad alive? And the Prophet says, don't say anything, keep quiet. And then he yells, is Abu Bakr alive? Shh, don't say anything, let him talk. Because the Muslims have died, many Muslims have passed in Uhud, and the Prophet is injured. It's a tragedy, Uhud is a massive tragedy. And then he says, is Umar alive? Keep quiet, don't say anything. And then Abu Sufyan is thinking, since everybody's quiet, that means all of the elites have passed. So he goes, oh, the Hubal. Hubal is the god he used to worship. When he says this, then the Prophet says, Ya Umar, because he had a microphone voice. Without a microphone, he had a microphone voice. Ya Umar, stand up and fight back, talk back. Because up until now, he was talking about the Prophet and the Sahaba. He said, don't talk to him. When you insult Allah, stand up and say something now. Right? Hubal Akbar, right? And so Umar then says, Rasulullah is alive, Abu Bakr is alive, and I'm alive to tell you that we are going to be taking care of you. And Abu Sufyan then understands, oh my God, everybody's still alive. And so he then leaves, and all he says is, we're going to meet again next year. That's all he could say. And we're going to meet at Badr. So Uhud part 2 would be at Badr. You understand? So first battle at Badr, then Uhud. Then he said we're going to meet again at Badr for the part 2 of this battle. But next year is there coming. The Muslims are intercepting and everything. Makkah has already lost so many people. They don't have the money or the wherewithal or anything to be able to fight the Muslims now. And the Muslims are growing, alhamdulillah, in Medina. This is before Ahzab. And so Abu Sufyan decides to come up with a plan. He doesn't want to go to Uhud. He doesn't want to go to Badr for the part 2. So he goes to Ghatafan. Ghatafan, Nuaym was visiting Makkah at the time for business. So he says, yeah, Nuaym, my friend, there's something I need you to do for me. because you're a neutral person from Ghatafan. You're not from Medina, you're not a Jew, and you're not from us. I need you to go to Medina and give the Prophet Rasulullah an image that Makkah is unbelievably strong and they are getting the biggest army ready and they are impossible to beat, and convince the Madinah Sahaba not to come to Badr for part 2. So that all of the Arabia will say, the Muslims were scared of coming to fight Quraysh. I said, okay, how much money? Of course, remember, Ghatafan is all money. And so, all right, he gave a massive amount of money, so of course the friendship is now intact. He says, okay. And then the next time he goes for business, he does business with Banu Qurayzah. Banu Qurayzah knows him really well. And then he comes to the Madinah Masjid as an outsider, so Sahaba have no problem with him. And he says, Ya Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, I just want to tell you I've come from Makkah and I have nothing to do with you people. Of course he's pretending to be neutral now. I'm just telling you, I've never seen an army as big as his. And he does the whole thing that he asked him to do. They're amazing, that you do not want to go and fight. Everybody's going to die. Remember what happened in Uhud? This is going to be Uhud times 10. And the Rasul says, we will fight, we will go there and fight, even if I'm the last person standing there to fight. But we will fight. So Nuaym is unsuccessful. But he did what he was asked to do. And so he is the most trusted person for Abu Sufyan from Ghatafan. And Banu Qurayzah already trusts him because Ghatafan is coming to kill and they do business. This Nuaym has become Muslim. Why? Well, it's a theory. In this interaction that he did with the Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, this little interaction, that brief interaction he did with the Rasulullah, he must have seen the life in Medina, he must have seen the life of Sahaba, he must have seen the khutbah of the Rasulullah in the Jum'ah. And he must have been impressed by it, and he remembered all of this, and then he must have done his research, tried to find out why are they killing and everything. Eventually it was enough for him to become Muslim. So now when the moment arrives at Khandaq, he crosses over and says, I believe in you as Rasulullah. You see a little bit of interaction with Rasulullah, he becomes a Muslim. This Nuaym radiallahu anh says, Ya Rasulullah, labbaik, I'm here for you now. You tell me what you want me to do, I'll do for you. Now he's one man. Already the Sahaba are thinned out in Khandaq. How can one additional man help? Not too much. So the Rasul says, there's not much you can do here, but why don't you go back and do something on that side? Strategically. You know, make this person fight that person, make this person fight that, and mistrust and everything. And so he says, Ya Rasulullah, if you want me to go there, do I have permission to talk negatively about you? Because I have to go as a Ghatafani. Can I use those horrible words about you? And can I lie to them? Which is haram as a Muslim. The Prophet says, a short hadith, war is deceit, war is deception. Yes, deception is halal in war. But deception is khida' in Arabic. It is not khiyana. What Banu Qurayzah is doing is not khida', they're doing khiyana. The difference we should know as Muslims. Many Muslims get confused about this. That you allow khiyana, astaghfirullah, Islam never allows khiyana. Khiyana means you say, I sign a paper that I'm going to be loyal to you. I'm not going to attack you. And then you attack. This is khiyana. It's haram no matter where you are. Khida' is what Abu Bakr Siddiq or what other people, Sahaba did, not to get caught. And so just to escape, you will say something. For example, when he was doing the hijrah and somebody was asking, who is this one with you? If you would have said this is Rasulullah, they were like, oh my God, we have a bounty on his head for $1 million, for 100 camels. We found him. He cannot expose the Rasulullah. So he says, this is my guide. The Rasulullah is all of our, he's a guide for all of us. So that's not a lie, but it is deception. That's not what he means, right? And so you are allowed to do this. I'm doing this intentional deception. This is allowed. In war, even in real life, you should not be doing this. But anyway, khid'ah is deception. We can do deception, we cannot do khiyana. Never. Okay. So he's given the license to go and do it. Now he comes up with the master plan. You have to listen to this. You're going to love this. He comes to Banu Qurayzah. And he says, listen, you guys know me, the Ghatafanis. We've been doing business for so long. As a friend of yours, I need to tell you something. Abu Sufyan, who is my friend from Meccan side, he has the army of 4,000. He has the food supplies. He has camels and everything. Banu Nadir, which is your Jewish partner, they have given us money. And so we are fighting. Already we know that if we don't get the money because it looks like you guys are not yet starting a fight because there's a trench and you guys don't know what to do, we might just pack up and leave. And I can already tell you, as soon as Abu Sufyan decides to leave, Ikrimah's forces and Khalid ibn Walid's forces will leave, guess who will be left here remaining? You guys. Abu Sufyan has Makkah, he has food supplies there. We have Ghatafanis, we will go back to our life. And Banu Nadir is already kicked out. You are the only idiots who are going to be stuck in Medina, and all the forces will come to you and you'll be dead. So, as a friend, I'm telling you, are you guys idiots for coming on this side? I would not be on this side. So, if you are asked to fight, ask Quraysh to give 70 of their men and to come to Banu Qurayzah's side. Because if their 70 Quraysh are with you, they're not going to leave without taking them. And don't ask for slaves, because they wouldn't care about the slaves. Ask for the ashraf, which is the elite. Okay, Banu Qurayzah says, what a great suggestion. You are a true friend. Let us think about it. Thank you. He then goes to Abu Sufyan on the other side of the camp. Nuaym radiallahu anhu. He says, oh Abu Sufyan, the great leader of Makkah, who's commanding this 10,000 army. He says, Nuaym, oh welcome, Nuaym, yes. As a friend, I have to tell you something, but in complete privacy, not in front of others. So not even in front of Ikrimah and Khalid ibn Walid. Oh, something top secret. So immediately you take the trust. He says, okay, go on. And he has this private chamber. He says, go on, what happened? He says, I was there on the side of Banu Qurayzah, because they're on our side, right? And you're not going to believe what they said. They are regretting the decision of having switched alliances and taking the side of Banu Nadir. They hate Banu Nadir for putting them in this mess. And now they have made a contract with the Rasulullah as a kafara that please forgive us for cheating, for doing khiyana. Would you forgive us if we take 70 of the Quraysh from Abu Sufyan's side and hand them over to you? Just like when Abu Sufyan had done a partnership with Al-Rajir, give me 70 Sahaba and we will kill them. Well, Banu Qurayzah is saying, give us 70 of Abu Sufyan's mushriks, and we will give them to the Rasulullah, and that will be our payment to escape. That will be a penalty, kafara. The penalty fine that you're paying. So, if Banu Qurayzah sends a messenger to you and says, give us 70 of your ashraf, be alert. Abu Sufyan says, what a friend you are for telling me this. Of course. Thank you. Let me think about this. And sure enough, shortly, 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, guess who's arriving? A guy from Banu Qurayzah. His name is Samuel. Of course, they're Jews, right? He comes in and says, yeah, Abu Sufyan, listen, you guys are busy with doing your own thing. You've not yet started the war. We're just stuck in here. You guys will leave back. And he's right. From his perspective, he's right. You guys are just going to leave. You're going to be stuck. I can't believe you switch sides. So, there's only one guarantee that you're not going to leave. And that is if you give your people to us. So I need 70 of your ashraf. Don't fool me with your slaves. Okay, I know you don't care if they die. I need 70 of your men on our side. Okay, that's it. We're not going to fight if you don't do that. So Abu Sufyan at this time immediately, of course he knows this is coming, and he then realizes what a friend Nuaym, wink wink, was. He says, give me some time, let me think. So he leaves. As soon as the emissary leaves, Nuaym then goes to Ghatafan, his own tribe, and says, listen you guys, we are just here for the money, but I'm telling you, Banu Qurayzah and Abu Sufyan, they have a fight going on. So don't take the first charge until these guys do something. And I think Banu Qurayzah is going to come and ask for 70 of our men. And if they ask, no way we're going to give it to them. I'm on your side, right? Okay, good. Ghatafan is like, of course you're not going to give. Now, Nuaym goes back to Banu Qurayzah. He says, do you know what he was saying when you guys left? Do you know what Abu Sufyan said? He said, do they think we are fools? Wallahi, I'm not even going to give a baby camel, let alone an ashraf. I'm not going to give them a baby camel. And he might have actually said this, Abu Sufyan. And so he says, I'm not going to give them even a baby camel. They let them ask what they want. And so, Banu Qurayzah goes in a rage. Now this man, Banu Qurayzah's head, Ka'ab ibn al-Asad, and he's looking at the Banu Nadir head, Huya ibn Akhtab. He goes, I knew this guy was trouble. Oh my God, I made such a big mistake. I knew I should not have trusted this guy. Now we switched alliances. We were perfectly fine until this idiot came in here and ruined it for us. Now they're regretting. But now it's too late. Remember what they did in front of Saad ibn Muadh? What treaty? And so now he's like, I knew this was going to happen. You guys can't make any decision. Anyway, now what do we do? So Banu Nadir's head, Uyay ibn Akhtab, the wretched man, he says, let me calm them down. Let me go there and tell them this is not possible. We're not going to, let me talk to them. So now Banu Nadir's head, Uyay ibn Akhtab, who is the one who was the architect of this Ahzab, he's the one who started the whole thing. He goes to Abu Sufyan. Abu Sufyan is basically he makes an ultimatum. He decides, he calls everybody in a high delegation meeting. He says, okay, that's enough. Everybody, we're going to have to start attacking tomorrow. That's it. Well, Banu Qurayzah wants this, Ghatafan is saying this, and this is, I'm done. So he calls Khalid ibn Walid, Ikrimah ibn Abi, everybody. We're going to do this, announce to everybody we're attacking on this day tomorrow. It just so happened that that day was Friday at Asr. What happens after Asr? The next day, Saturday. What is Saturday for the Jews? Sabbath. If you don't know what is Sabbath, no fighting, no jobs, no business, no nothing. We do nothing except for Allahu Akbar all day, which is good. But we do this on Friday. But we still, Allah has made the religion easier for us with the Rasulullah. We can do everything else while we are doing ibadah on Friday. But for the Jews, Saturday, no. It's like for us when we are in Ihram, we can't pluck anything, we can't kill anyone, we can't do anything. So Saturday is impossible for them to do any kind of battle. Okay? And so when he comes with this proposal, Banu Qurayzah says, tomorrow, now it's Saturday. We're not going to fight on Saturday. What a day has Abu Sufyan picked? Then let's all attack on Saturday. We're not going to fight on Saturday. Go and tell him we're not going to fight on Saturday. Tell him, let's do Sunday. One day late. That's it. Now they're being honest. They're not saying anything that is wrong. So Banu Nadir, Nuaym ibn Masood now goes, now he knows what is Sabbath. He understands you cannot fight on Sabbath. He goes back to Abu Sufyan and says, they have requested that you extend by one day. Let's do Sunday. He says, why? Extend by one day? Why do you want this one extra day? Just enough time for you to go to Medina, tell the Sahaba that they're attacking so they can come back? Yeah, right. Like I'm going to trust those people. They betrayed the Rasulullah. You think they're going to be on my side? I'm not going to trust them. Why don't you do it on Saturday? And he says, no, we cannot because of Sabbath. And now Abu Sufyan, they're mushriks. The Ghatafani are mushriks. They don't know what is Sabbath. We know this because we are people of the book. The Jews are people of the book. But the mushriks, they have never been exposed to Medina's Jews. They don't know what is Sabbath. So he says, what is this Sabbath excuse that you guys are coming up with now? Both Banu Nadir and Banu Qurayzah are saying, no, Sabbath, we cannot touch anything. I got to agree with them. So then he goes in a rage. And then he says, and Ikrimah is there, and Khalid ibn Walid is there, and Banu Nadir, Nuaym ibn Masood, he says, what is Saturday except for a day between Friday and Sunday? Let's just attack. This is just a trick that you guys have played against me, and you guys are on the side of the Rasulullah, I know. Now this is Nuaym ibn Masood who hates the Rasulullah. He's thinking, what? Are you kidding me? We're on your side. And so there's back and forth going on. He says, okay, listen. He was super angry, Abu Sufyan. He was scared. Nuaym ibn Masood became scared. So he said, let me go back to Banu Qurayzah and talk to them one last time. Please, okay, calm down. And he's so scared that he's not going to come back to Abu Sufyan anymore. He's like, I can't, because he's probably going to kill me now. He comes back to Banu Qurayzah, and look at how wretched this Nuaym ibn Masood is. Remember last week I told you, when Abu Sufyan asked him, who is more rightly guided? He said, you guys, the mushriks, are more rightly guided than Muslims. Nuaym ibn Masood goes to Banu Qurayzah and says, listen guys, they're really, really angry. Let's just fight on Saturday, Sabbath. Banu Qurayzah says, Astaghfirullah, how dare you ask us to break the oath of Allah and fight on Saturday? Have you no shame? You are a Jew and you are this. You are the worst of the worst. We will never fight, even if we die, we will never fight on Saturday. So Banu Qurayzah is not going to do that. Oh my God, Nuaym ibn Masood is now sitting, what do I do now? I cannot go back to Abu Sufyan with no answer. And if I don't go, then these guys are not fighting. So he just decides to sit with Banu Qurayzah within the camp, not going back to Abu Sufyan. Okay, and we'll end it there. What happens now?